Hello everyone, today's topic is CSMA with collision avoidance. The CSMA with collision avoidance is used to reduce the collisions when two or more stations want to transmit the data at the same time in a data link layer. In contrast to the CSMA CD that deals with collisions after their occurrence, the CSMA CA prevents collisions prior to their occurrence. So what is the algorithm we need to follow for CSMA with collision avoidance is, in the first step, when a frame is ready, the transmitting station checks whether the channel is idle or busy. So this is common to all the protocols. Next, if the channel is busy, then the station waits until the channel becomes idle. This is also common up to CSMA with collision detection protocol. Now, if the channel is idle, then the station waits for an interframe gap, also called as interframe space IFS or IFG amount of time, and then sends the frame. So this is the additional feature which is existed in the CSMA with collision avoidance. So up to CSMA with collision detection, if the channel is idle, then the station needs to transmit the packet. But here, if the channel is idle, the station waits for an interframe gap amount of time and then sends the frame. After sending the frame, it sets a timer. So when the transmitting station wants to send a frame, so along with that it will set the timer also. The station then waits for the acknowledgement from the receiver. If it receives the acknowledgement before expiry of timer, it marks as a successful transmission. Otherwise, it will considered as the collision will occur in the transmission channel. So it will wait for a back off time period and restarts the algorithm from the first step onwards. So here in CSMA CA, we need to follow three strategies. One is interframe space, second one is contention window, and the third one is acknowledgement. Interframe space. After finding the ideal channel, it waits for a period of time. So that means when the channel is idle, in the previous protocols the transmitting stations are ready to transmit the packet immediately, but here it will not transmit the packet immediately. It will wait for some random amount of time. So that amount of time or period of time is called as interframe space. Interframe space can be used to define the priority of the station or frames. So this is mainly used to define the priority of the station or frames. So why it is used to define the priority? That means whenever the station, the hidden terminals are there, so by using the single shared channel, two or more stations want to transmit the packet at a time. So without knowing, all the stations will sense the channel at a time and identify that the channel is idle. So if the channel is idle, then all the transmitter station starts transmitting it packet by using the shared channel. So because of that, the collisions will occur. So to avoid that type of collisions, here interframe space can be used to define the priority of the station or frame. Contention window. So this is the second strategy in CSMA CA. So what is this contention window? So once the means the transmitting station is waiting in the IFG or IFS, so after that again the timer times out, again it will check whether the channel is idle or not. If the channel is idle, then it will move into the contention window. So what is this contention window? Here the amount of time is divided into slots. Means whatever the time period is there, the time is divided into slots depending on the stations. So each slot is assigned to the particular stations according to the binary exponential backoff strategy. That means by using the binary exponential backoff strategy, each slot is assigned to the stations, particular stations. Station needs to sense the channel after each time slot. Means once the time slot, after each time slot, the stations again sense the channel whether it is idle or busy. So the third strategy is acknowledgement. So what is acknowledgement? The reply message of the particular receiver. That means when the receiver receives the packet correctly, then immediately it will send the reply message. That reply message is nothing but our acknowledgement. So if within the time period, if the acknowledgement is correctly received, then the sender understands that the transmission is successful. In some cases, after the expiry of the time period, the acknowledgement is not received by the sender. So here a timeout timer can help guarantee that the receiver has received the frame. So based on the timer times out, the acknowledgement is correctly, the packet is correctly received, or some corruption is occurred in the middle. That will be identified based on the timer. So this is one example, working principle of CSMA CA. So as usual, here when the station is having a frame, first it need to sense the channel. So if the channel is busy, then again it will sense the channel. So that process is continuous. That means continuously sensing the channel until the channel is idle. So once the channel is idle, then the station will be in the IFS. That means interframe space or interframe gap. Why we use this IFS? So that is mainly used to provide the priority of the station or priority of the frame, which is to be sent first. Next it will move to the contention window. So what is this contention window? Whatever the time period is there, the time period is divided into slots. And how the slots will be divided and how it is assigned to the particular station by using the binary exponential backoff strategy. By using that binary exponential backoff strategy, the time is divided into slots and is assigned to the particular user. So after the timer times out, again the station will sense the channel. If the channel is idle, then it will send the frame. So based on the priority of the station or based on the priority of the frame, the station will start transmitting the packets. So after that, if the timeout, if the timer times out, before the timer times out, the acknowledgement is received by the receiver. So after timeout, if the acknowledgement is not received, then the sender will understand the packet may lost somewhere else, or the corruption will happen. That means due to some collisions, the corruption will happen. We'll see the flow diagram for CSMA CA. So first step is start. Next, k equal to 0. So what is this k equal to 0? That is counter value. So we need to count the number of attempts, how many number of attempts will be considered by using the counter value. Here the variable k is considered for counter value. So k is equal to initially considering the 0 value. Next, when k equal to 0, that means this is the first attempt. So we will check whether the channel is, the station checking senses the channel whether it is idle or not. So for example, if the channel is busy, means not idle, if it is no condition, then again it is going back and it is sensing the channel again. So until it will be idle, means until the channel is idle, the same loop is continuous, same loop is repeating. So once the channel is idle, then it will move to wait for IFS time. So once the channel is idle, then it will move to the wait for IFS time. So after that, after the timer times out, again it will check whether the channel is idle or not. So still idle, means when it senses the channel, still it is idle, then it will move to the next step. Otherwise it will go back to the first step again. That means again sensing the channel from the starting onwards. So if the channel is again idle, then it will choose a random number or between 0 and 2 to the power of k minus 1. So why here we are calculating the random value r between 0 to 2 to the power of k minus 1? So here we are following the binary exponential backoff strategy. So by using that strategy, here we are random number is choosing between the 0 to 2 to the power of k minus 1 value. So here the contention window size is 2 to the power of k minus 1. So for example, if k value, so from starting onwards, this is the first attempt, so k equal to 0. So if you substitute k equal to 0 in 2 to the power of k minus 1, so 2 to the power of 0 minus 1, what it is? 0. That means this is the first attempt. This is the first attempt. So if it is the first attempt, then there is no collision, then we will move forward. So next one is wait for r slots. So once the random number r is chosen, then it will wait for r slots. That means by choosing the random number r, we will divide the time into r number of slots. So after each slot, if idle, then continue. If busy, then halt. Halt means stop, and continue when idle. That means we will wait for r number of slots. So once the slot is over, so in the next slot we will check whether the channel is idle or not. So if the channel is idle, then move forward. If the channel is busy, then wait for some time. So the process is continuous. The process is continuous. Once all the slots are over, then simply send the frame. So after sending the frame, wait for timeout. That means wait for the acknowledgement. So the timer is already set along with the frame. So now we will wait for the timeout. So before timeout, if the acknowledgement is received, then the transmission is successful. If the acknowledgement is not received, then we will increment the value of k is equal to 1. Why we will increment the value of k is equal to k plus 1? So if the packet is not received, if the acknowledgement is not received, mean the transmitting station assumes that the packet is somewhere else, means is corrupted somewhere else. That means the collision is occurred. So it need to send the frame again. So again means it is the second chance. So this is the first attempt. So if it is the second attempt, then simply we will increment the counter value. So the counter value is k is equal to k plus 1. So after increment, what we will do? So we will check the maximum limit of k, because if k value is infinite, then it will be a infinite loop. It will be a infinite loop. No, we will consider a finite loop value, finite value for counter. So that's why we will put the finite value here is k greater than 15. So we will put any value here. Based on the limit, we will take the values. So if k value is greater than 15, then simply abort. Otherwise, again going back to the means if the condition is failed, then again going back to this first one, that is ideal channel. So again starting from this one, again all the steps will be followed. So this is the flow diagram for CSMA-C. So now coming to the advantages of CSMA-CA. It prevents the collisions, because so many steps we are followed, means already in collision detection some of the steps are followed. So to that steps here some additional features are added. That's why here we are preventing the collision. Due to the acknowledgements, data is not lost unnecessarily. So by using the acknowledgement, the data is not lost unnecessarily. If for example data is corrupted, if acknowledgement is not received, means again the sender will send the data. So by using that concept, the data is not lost unnecessarily. It avoids wasteful transmission. So if for example anywhere collision is occurred, so simply it will send a transmission, means collision signal to the all the stations. So by sending the collision signals, it will wait for some time before sending the next packets. So by using this concept, it avoids the wasteful transmissions. It is very much suited for wireless transmissions. So very much suitable for wireless transmissions. Compared to wired transmissions, it is suitable for the wireless transmissions. Coming to the disadvantages, the algorithm calls for long waiting times. Yeah, as we observed. So first, if the channel is busy, it will be continuously sensing the channel. Once the channel is found to be idle, then it will move to the IFS, that is one waiting period. So once the IFS time period is over, then again it will move to the contention period. So in that contention window, again some R number of slots are there. In each slot again it will be wait, and it will check the channel whether it is idle or busy. That's why the algorithm calls for long waiting times. It has high power consumption. So this is also one of the disadvantages with CSMA CA. I hope you people understand the concept of CSMA CA. Thank you.